We are almost halfway through August and summer is flying by, man. It has been just an absolutely crazy year. I cannot believe we're over halfway through August already. And the smallmouth fishing on Lake St. Clair is still pretty good. We're still in that summer pattern. And I am going to go over how I'm catching them and what I'm looking for to catch Lake St. Clair smallmouth bass. So like I said, the smallmouth are still in their summer pattern. So they're still going to be in their normal summer range. So this means there's going to be fish anywhere from 3 foot deep all the way out to 22 feet deep. And they're not everywhere. They're not going to be kind of in those spawning areas still. They're more in the current areas where there's a little bit more oxygen, and they're still out in that deeper water chasing bait around. And we actually had a pretty big cold front go through drop the water temperature, and the water that's out in the middle of the lake is actually a little bit warmer than the water that's coming in from the river. So I've been seeing anywhere from 68 to 72, 73 degrees. And we've had a couple calm days in a row where it's been in the 80s. So I expect that water temperature to still come back up a little bit. But when we get these little temperature drops in the summer, it doesn't really do much to the fish, really. I think it affects the fishermen a little bit more, and we think that it's gonna do something, and it really doesn't. We're definitely losing daylight though. The sun's coming up later and it's going down sooner. So those fish they're still holding strong in the summer areas. I don't think they're going to move out of there anytime soon. I mean, historically September is a transition month, and I don't think we're quite to that transition yet. They're still kind of doing the same things that they've been doing since the spawn got over with. And, you know, like the whole month of July, I'm pretty much doing the same things still that I was doing all of July. So I'm going to go over kind of the areas that I'm looking for, what I'm looking for, and how I'm catching them. So as normal, a drop shot is still a major player out there on Lake St. Clair right now. And I'm using minnow shaped baits. I haven't really seen them puking up that many crawfish. Granted, I haven't put any fish in the box either. And that's usually when you see them puke up those crawfish. They just don't digest them as well as they digest like the gobies and the minnows and all that stuff. So I haven't really seen many crawfish getting spit up. So that's why I'm still kind of sticking to my minnow shaped baits. And drop shot's still a big player, especially early in the morning and then midday. So there's definitely feed windows right now. The first thing in the morning, the fish are biting pretty good. And then mid to late morning, say around like 9:30 to 11:30, there's definitely a lull where they don't bite very good. And during that lull, I've seen them kind of reacting a little bit negatively to the drop shot. I'm going to try and I'm going to go up to a 1/2 ounce sinker during that time and see if I can get more of a reaction bite out of them. But I think because normally I'm throwing a 1/4 ounce or a 3/8 ounce sinker, and those fish kind of follow it down to the bottom. And I think they're seeing that sinker, and with all the pressure that they've gotten, I mean, we had 2 major tournaments here this year, and that has definitely negatively impacted the fishery. And the second tournament took all the fish out of Lake St. Clair and took them to the Detroit River. And I know not every single tournament angler went up to Lake St. Clair, but I'd say at least 150 of them did. And that makes a big impact over 2 or 3 days. So definitely is not easy out there by any means right now. There's still fish to be caught. There's still some really nice ones out there, but it's not easy, and you definitely have to work for them a little bit. So with those fish kind of acting negatively towards my drop shot presentation, I've definitely leaned a little bit heavier on a few other techniques that are really doing a lot of the major lifting for me right now. And I think with these techniques, there's no sinker, it's just one rig. And I think it's just a little bit more finessey even than, say, a drop shot, because you don't have that exposed lead falling down, and it's more compact. And I think that kind of these techniques that's why I'm catching a few more fish on them, especially during the down period. Now, don't get me wrong, like when they're biting. You can catch them on pretty much whatever you want, as long as you can present it good. You can catch them on a drop shot, you can catch them on a Ned rig, you can catch them cranking, you can catch them on a swim bait, you can catch them any way you want when they're really biting. But right now, there's more time during the day that they are not actively feeding than they are actively feeding. And those are the times of the day where you really have to work hard to get a bite. So what I'm throwing during that time period right now is predominantly a Ned rig. And this one's just a little crawfish. And this has definitely become my go-to Ned head. I absolutely love this head. It's the Finesse Football Jig by Northland Tackle, and it comes in several different sizes. It comes in an 1/8 ounce, it comes in 3/16, quarter, 5/16, and 3/8. So there's a lot of selection. They use a 1/0 Gamakatsu hook on it, and you can really drag it across the bottom well. And to the traditional mushroom style head, I haven't been using it that often. I'm not fishing around that much grass anymore right now. I'm definitely focusing on those sandy spots and gravel areas where the grass isn't up. And that football head just stays right down on the bottom, and it's just got a stout hook on it. I just really like it. So that Ned rig has definitely been a heavy player. I'm seeing them on live scope, and they're I'll pitch it out to them and I can watch them go down to it and eat it. And it's been really good for me. So I've been using a few different baits on there, anywhere from TRD to the new Ned BLT by Crush City. That one's been pretty good for me. The TRD Tickler, I've been using this little craw bait a little bit. And I'm using this one when I'm around a little bit more rock than sand, especially if there's like a isolated boulder or something where I feel like a crawfish could hide. Then I'll throw kind of one of these in there. But for the most part, it's been that turd style bait. So TRD and several different ones. I mean, I've thrown a Berkeley flatworm on the Ned rig and caught some fish on that too. So there's several different baits that you can use to get bit. Whatever one you have confidence in, whatever your favorite color is, that's the one that you need to lock in your hand. And that Ned rig's been getting it done for me, especially during the tough bite periods. The next technique that I've been using a lot to get bites, especially again during the lull period of the day, is jigging a minnow, man. This is a Northland Tackle Smeltinator jig head and a baby Z2. I know you've seen it in pretty much every video that I've done so far, and I still have it tied on. I have not taken it out of the boat. I have it tied on a rod every single day. And I really think now that kind of these fish have been pressured, that this technique is a really good alternative to a drop shot. And you can swim it, you can let it sink all the way down to the bottom and kind of work it like a Ned rig almost, especially if it's clean enough. Or you can swim it over the grass, you can swim it right underneath the surface, you can find them on live scope, see where they're hanging out, and just target those individual fish. And it's a one-piece profile. I think that's the way to go right now. It's just more natural than a piece of lead or a piece of tungsten falling. And it's just been really good for me all year long. The Smeltinator jig head is just money, dude. It's the best jig head on the market, in my opinion. And I just have it tied on. That's what I like. That's what I've been using. Smeltinator and a minnow. And it's still hot. It's still one of the best baits out there right now. And definitely in the middle of the day, especially if it's calm, that's what I'm throwing. So that's it. Smeltinator, minnow. You can throw any kind of minnow. You can throw Z-Man, you can throw Strike King, you can throw depths, you can throw whatever you want, and just whatever you have confidence in, as long as it's not outlandish, as long as it looks pretty natural, you're gonna get bit on it. The last technique that I have been using that has been a big player for me, especially when the wind's blowing, has been a paddle tail. So this is a 3-inch paddle tail. This is the Crush City Mayor. I've been using this one quite a bit. I'm also throwing a Kitech. I've been throwing a Spark Shad, whatever your favorite paddle tail minnow is. And again, you're going to want to use a natural colored paddle tail. And whatever your favorite one is, that's the one you need to have tied on. And I don't think the color really matters that much. I don't think the brand really matters that much. It's whatever you have confidence in and whatever you like, and that's the one you're going to get bit on. And this paddle tail, I've got it on a Smeltinator jig head, and really I've been fishing this one a little bit shallower. So around the current, like up in the St. Clair River on the flats, down in the Detroit River on the flats, especially when it's really windy, I don't want to go battle the waves out on the lake. Those flats have been holding some fish, and you just got to find those flats that don't have a bunch of grass on it where it's choked out. You want like isolated rock or isolated pieces of grass and predominantly sand. And those have been the best areas for me. And you just got to put the trolling motor on high and cover water until you find those. They're not everywhere. And I've been fishing like a couple days. I fished the same water 2 days in a row and caught them pretty good the first day, and then the second day I didn't catch shit. So it just, you gotta kind of move around till you find them, and the wind's definitely gonna position them a little bit different, especially if it's blowing from a different direction 2 days in a row. You gotta watch the watercolor and just kind of adapt your presentation to that. Use a little bit darker color when the water's dirty, use a lighter color when the water's clean, and just kind of cover water and throw out those dark spots. And really just gotta make sure your bait's fishing clean. If you're fishing around that grass and it's getting hung up every cast, you gotta move, or you gotta change something up, use a lighter jig head. But paddle tail, it's been really good for me, especially around the current. And I think those fish are just a little bit more opportunistic around the current. You know, they get behind those current breaks, whether it's grass, whether it's a rock, whether it's a seawall, and they kind of, when they see an opportunity, they take it. Whereas those fish out in the lake, they can get really picky, especially if the wind's down and it's calm. And I think they just eat in the morning, and then they kind of just hunker down, digest their food, and then they eat again around like 11:30 to 1 o'clock, depending on the day. And the moon phase, I'm sure, has a little bit to do with that, but I think they're just kind of just chilling, like digesting their morning breakfast, and then once they're hungry again for lunch, they eat again. So again, paddle tail, been killing it for me. Smeltinator jig head, and just chuck it and wind it and give it a little twitch here and there. But that's been a really good technique for me. One last little bonus nugget. So when the wind's blowing out there and this time of year, don't be afraid, especially if you're gonna go out there in the lake and battle those waves. And when it's windy out there and like your trolling motor's coming out of the water and stuff, like, it's hard to see them on forward-facing sonar. It's hard to fish a drop shot. It's hard to throw a Ned rig just because it's like you're getting tossed around, you're moving a lot. So do not be afraid to tie on the old crankbait. I know it's a forgotten technique. Nobody throws it anymore. Everybody's buying jig heads and minnows, but crankbait, still getting it done. Just chuck it and wind it. It's a great way to cover water, and when they hit it, they absolutely knock the tar out of it. So don't forget the crankbait. Just chuck it as far as you can and reel. You definitely don't want your crankbait to be running in the grass. You want to keep it above the grass. So just kind of keep mindful of that, and have a few different sizes or different depth divers, and alter that to the area that you're fishing. It's a great way to cover water. And when that wind's blowing, don't be afraid to chuck and wind that crankbait. All right, if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. We're just gonna kind of wrap this one up here. If you have any comments, dude, just let me know. If you want to see anything, if you have any questions, if you want me to go over anything, just shoot me a comment down below. I'll be happy to go over stuff. Like, just give me a few ideas, what you want to know, and I'll whatever I do, I'll let you know. Like, I'm not gonna put a bunch of bullshit on here. Like, this is the stuff that I throw. This is what I believe. This is how I'm catching them. So I do have a few guide trips open for September and October. August is full. If you're interested in my guide service, check out lakestclairbass.com. September can be a little bit tough. It all depends on the weather. I mean, I've had some really, really good days in September. I've had some tough days. It just kind of depends on what Mother Nature's doing and what the weather pattern is. And October can be really good. Just kind of depends, again, on the weather. And, you know, those big fish are going to be around sooner rather than later. They're going to fatten up. And October is a really good time to catch your PB. I caught my PB, not this current one, but the last one I caught in October, towards the end of October, 6 pounds, 12 ounces. And yeah, that was a giant. So there's big fish. If you're looking to get out with me, just give me a shout. Check me out on Instagram, Joe Bauer Fishing on Instagram. There's a bunch of pictures from big fall fatties on there. So alrighty, appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you on the next one.